Hagen Circus, the show of shows. The police are searching for the woman who warned the unscrupulous Canadian Grant Andrews. And Louis Little, the family suspect, knows that it was Christine. Over at the lot where the circus is to commence its Sydney season within 2 days, John Hagen discovers that the dwarf's story regarding the trunk in his room was a tissue of lies. Angered, he tells Jim Cameron that he means to get rid of Little and his companion, and at that moment the queer couple arrive on the lot.
I'm going to tell Mr. Little to clear off this lot and never show his nose inside the place again. And that means his partner, too. Come on, Jim.
Wait.
Well?
The dwarf's left his companion. Hanson's gone into the big top, but Little's coming this way.
Towards this van?
Yes. I can see his face plain from this window. He's smiling and looking very pleased with himself.
He won't be smiling when I've finished with him.
This will be the little man now.
Come in.
Ah, my dear Mr. Hagen, and Mr. Cameron, too. This is indeed a fortuitous meeting. A glorious morning, is it not? One might almost suspect a touch of spring in the air.
Mr. Little?
Yes?
I am very glad that you've shown up. I want to talk to you.
A pleasure, Mr. Hagen.
You've dismissed the taxi you arrived in.
Taxi? Why, of course. But why?
That's rather a pity.
Really?
Because I was going to tell you and your partner to get into it. Drive off this lot and don't come back here, ever.
It's a little early in the morning for practical jokes, Mr. Hagen.
I don't happen to be joking.
But, sir...
I'm telling you that you're dismissed, Little. Fired, sacked, whatever term you prefer. I don't want to see you nor your partner hanging around this lot anymore. Well, what are you smiling at?
I think you must be quite out of your mind, Mr. Hagen.
Get out of here.
I beg your pardon.
I'll give you just 5 minutes to get off this lot. If you haven't gone by that time, I'll ring for my foreman and have you thrown off.
How dare you speak to me like that? How dare you? You, with a daughter that consorts with common criminals. So, I have touched a tender spot, eh? The so self-righteous John Hagen, that pillar of respectability, hiding a daughter from the police.
Will I throw him out, Mr. Hagen?
Lay just one finger on me, and I'll bring down Hagen's Circus in such a ruin that it will take a miracle ever to build it up again.
No.
I'll step off this lot, Mr. Hagen. Certainly, if you wish. But my first stopping place will be the police station, and my second, the office of the afternoon newspaper. Imagine the possibilities, my dear sir. Picture the headlines. Christine Hagen arrested. Famous circus owner's daughter conspires with criminal circus wrecker. Do you imagine you could ever hold your head up again after that?
That'll be just about all from you, Little.
It is far from all, Mr. Cameron. But I think it is quite enough to demonstrate that I hold the future of Hagen's Circus right in the hollow of my hand.
Nonsense.
Allow me to correct you, Mr. Cameron. You are very young in circus business, I'm afraid. Hagen's, your employer will be the first to tell you, has built up its reputation on trustworthiness and fair dealing.
Just what do you want, Little?
It is strange to hear you talk of terms, Mr. Hagen.
Cut out the sneering, Little. You heard what Mr. Hagen said.
What do I want? Well, Mr. Hagen, I am a very humble man, and my wants are few indeed. First, I should like this unpleasant scene forgotten completely. I should prefer things to remain just as they were.
Oh, no. We demand an explanation about that trunk in your room.
So you demand, eh? May I remind you, young man, that you are in no position to demand anything? I feel I must make this very plain right from the beginning.
So the mask comes off, eh? You're nothing more than a scheming blackmailer.
Mr. Hagen, I suggest you advise this hot-headed young man to mind his words.
That's true, isn't it?
Certainly not. Am I asking for money?
No, because you're too clever. We could have you arrested for extortion.
Jim.
But, Mr. Hagen...
Let me handle this, please. Am I to understand this? We're to let you to continue with the circus?
And I, on my part, promise to be discreet about certain highly foolish actions on the part of a member of your family. Frankly, Mr. Hagen, I think my terms are extremely generous. But there, you may need some little time to think over the situation. If you need me, I shall be with my partner in the big top.
What I'd give to put my boot behind him.
Yes, and make more trouble.
Honestly, Mr. Hagen, I'd still pitch him out.
And ruin myself.
Oh, surely that's an exaggeration. Don't you think the reputation you've built up would be proof against any possible scandal, sir?
I can't take the risk, Jim.
But, sir...
There's something no one knows. Not even the members of my family. Several times you commented on the strong bill we have.
I'd say it's just about the greatest list of style attractions ever to appear under canvas.
It is. I've lined up this bill because I want to show this city the cream of entertainment and smash any possible competition. But it costs money, Jim. It's cost a lot of money. And much more than I could afford.
You mean...
Yes. At this very moment, I'm heavily in debt. I'm taking a gigantic gamble, but one I'm certain will come off. I've done it before many times. And I know with this bill, I'll have trebled my profits at the end of the Sydney season. But right now...
You're sort of balancing on a financial tightrope.
That explains it exactly. Another month, I could have laughed at that man's threat to close the circus. But now... No, Jim, I can't afford to take the slightest risk.
Mr. Hagen?
Well?
There's only one thing I'm afraid of.
And what's that?
It won't end here. That dwarf is as dangerous a customer as I've ever encountered. Well, you saw that when, just for a few minutes, that bland mask slipped. And then we saw the true man.
You mean, he'll ask for money?
Oh, no. As I said to him, Little's too clever for that. But there are other things beside money. Power, for instance. And privileges.
And I've got nobody but myself to blame for this.
Oh, but surely...
No one else, Jim. Against practically everyone's wishes, I brought that little scoundrel into my circus. Against everyone's wishes, I kept him on. Even Dr. Playford warned me, but I wouldn't listen. Well, they say that in this life, one buys experience very dearly.
Hello, Doctor. Come inside.
Heard of the lot this morning?
No.
Just sitting here in your room nursing your worries, eh?
I'm all right.
You don't have to pretend to me, Chris. John told me the whole story last night.
About
Yes. So we can talk together quite simply.
the police had a description of me in the paper this morning.
I never read such things.
Dr. Playford, you're my friend, aren't you?
I hope so, Christine.
Then help me. Tell me what to do.
Nothing.
But, Doctor...
If I were you, Chris, I'd just sit tight. Sooner or later this thing will blow over. After all, there's nothing you can do. What's the good of stirring up a lot of muddy water? Let it settle, Chris. In a few weeks, all this will be nothing more than a nasty memory.
If only I could be sure.
Chris, can I ask you a question? I'm afraid it's a very personal one.
All right.
If that man Andrews had really given himself up to the police, how would you feel about it? Think carefully before you answer, Chris.
I am.
Well, I'll put it another way. If you knew that Andrews was out of your way, say, for a year or 2 years, would you still be in love with him?
Yes.
I see.
You don't? Not really. I've made up my mind about Grant. He's rotten and worthless. He's brought nothing but trouble and unhappiness into my life. And I swear to you on everything I hold sacred, I'll never try to see him or speak to him again.
But you still love him?
I still love him. You find that hard to understand, don't you, Doctor?
No. You see, one of the most exasperating things about young people is that they firmly believe nothing happens to anyone but themselves. They tend to forget that other people, older people, were young themselves once. And life moves in a painfully precise pattern.
Just what are you trying to tell me, Doctor?
Life plays a pretty mean trick on you, Chris. But this isn't the first time. Not by any means. You see, more than 30 years ago, long before you were born, there was a young chap who fell in love with the female counterpart of your Grant Andrews.
I see. Was he, by any chance, a young doctor?
Hello, Annie! Welcome back!
That's Annie! She's back from hospital.
And that puts finish to our quiet talk. Come on, Christine. Let's go down and welcome the old dear back home.
Annie Weatherwax is home again. Can her breezy personality blow the shadows from the lives of the Hagen family? Don't miss the next episode of this fascinating serial, Hagen Circus, written by Max Afford.